The Republican members that are here today, what have you all done to help Joe Biden in this year that you all have waited for?
All right, so that's a ridiculous and silly question. I want to commend you for being the media and telling it Democrat policy. So let me ask you something.
Come on, man, that's been going on for 20 years.
Yeah, okay, hey, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. What rate of illegal immigration did we have in 2020? Do you know anything? I asked you a question. Do you know anything?
How long have you been in office?
I've been in office 11 years now.
And this has been kicked the count during multiple administrations.
Except you don't get to argue with me. You asked your question. You asked your question. You don't get. You want to hold a press conference? You can do it over there.
You want
to hold a press conference? You can do it over there.
How are you?
So hold on. I'm going to answer his question.
I know I talked about Ted Cruz yesterday, but I can't help myself. I know that I'll be kicking myself for this later if and when I'm disappointed again in November, but for now, just let me indulge in the fact that Ted is currently the less popular candidate on the Senate ticket here in Texas. So in a last-minute effort to claw back some of his lost support, Ted Cruz is trying to rebrand himself as bipartisan, as he insists that he has always been bipartisan. I will say that one thing that is actually bipartisan about Ted Cruz is that he seems to be strongly disliked, not even as a senator, but just as a human being, by people on both sides of the aisle. Former House Speaker John Boehner, Republican, said about Cruz, "I have never worked with a more miserable SOB in my life." He also called him Lucifer in the flesh. Former Democratic Senator and comedian Al Franken said of Cruz, "I like Cruz more than most of my other colleagues like Ted Cruz, and I hate Ted Cruz." And maybe the most disconcerting anti-Ted comment came from Lindsey Graham, Republican, who once said, "If you killed Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the trial was in the Senate, nobody would convict you."
If you killed Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the trial was in the Senate, nobody can convict you.
I also have to mention that Trump famously called Ted's wife ugly and threatened to spill the beans on her, whatever that even meant. He suggested that Ted's father helped to kill John F. Kennedy, and he started a birther movement around Ted and said he probably wasn't a good evangelical because Cuba doesn't typically produce a lot of those. Apart from disdain from his political colleagues, there is the ever-enduring conspiracy theory floating around the internet that maybe Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer, and Ted's own family and friends seem to not like him very much. Ted Cruz lives here in Houston in the wealthiest part of town, and when Texans were freezing in their homes literally to death, Ted Cruz famously fled the country to go to Mexico. And when he was caught, he pinned the blame on his daughters, saying they were the ones who wanted to go to Cancun. He was just dropping them off. Then a photo went viral of his sad, sad puppy, hilariously named Snowflake, looking out the front door, wondering where everyone went. But the best part of the story was that text messages confirming Ted's real intent behind going to Cancun were leaked to the press. In the messages, his wife was telling a group of their friends that she and her family were thinking of leaving for Cancun for a week to escape the freezing cold that was killing Ted's constituents in their homes. The leaked messages disproved Ted's aforementioned excuse that he was just dropping his kids off in Mexico. But who leaked the text messages? One of his so-called friends had to have. That is hands down my favorite part of that dumb story. And I call the story dumb, but it was actually very, very serious, and Texans are still mad about what happened. They know who was at fault for what happened, and they have not forgotten. He's still Cancun Cruz around these parts, and I believe that his actions, or rather his lack of actions and his lack of empathy during the polar vortex of 2021 could potentially haunt him all the way out of office in November. Now, just over a month away from the election, the Cook Political Report has switched the Texas Senate race. Texas, of course, being a notoriously red state, has gone from being likely Republican to lean Republican, which is a big deal around these parts. His opponent, Colin Allred, is described as a black football captain at Baylor University who played for the Tennessee Titans before working in the Obama Justice Department and compiling a center-left record as a 3-term congressman from a business-minded Dallas seat. He is also ramping up his fundraising efforts, and it's paying off. Ted Cruz recently went on Newsmax to complain that Chuck Schumer and George Soros, the right's favorite boogeyman, are flooding the state of Texas with donations to his opponents.
They are coming after me with everything they got. My opponent who is an extreme left-wing Democrat. He's a congressman named Colin Allred. He's voted with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time his first 4 years in Congress. He's voted for open borders and higher taxes and defunding the police. And yet he's been on TV for 3 months straight with relentless attack ads. I just went on TV a couple of weeks ago. And so I want to encourage your viewers this morning. I need your help. Please go to tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org, and contribute, because we are getting swamped by Chuck Schumer and George Soros. And as I said, they have put a bullseye on the state of Texas. They know if they flip Texas, if they take me out, they take the entire country. They keep the Senate Democrat. So I need your help. Please go to tedcruz.org.
That's the same thing Lauren Boebert said was happening in Colorado. There was all this big money coming in from Hollywood millionaires to fund her opponent's campaign, and that seems to be paying off for her. She looks likely to stay in Congress for at least a couple more years, despite every reason that she should not, and she is, after all, Ted's protege. Also, I know it's easy to talk about how bad Ted Cruz is, but he described Colin Allred as being extremely left-wing. He is not. He's not more left-wing than Beto O'Rourke, who came dangerously and impressively close to defeating Ted Cruz in 2018. And Allred recently posted a statement of support for Israel on social media. I really feel like he could have just said less there, but it is nice to know how he actually feels. It's very establishment Dem. He's hardly a radical leftist. Do with that what you will. So while all of this is a lot of fun to talk about, let's remember that these people make decisions that govern our lives. And since we're talking about the Senate here, the people who are elected into those halls of Congress make decisions that impact people across the entire nation, not just in the states that they represent. This is a race to watch. A lot can and will happen over the next month, and if Texas is able to elect a Democrat after decades of being solidly Republican at the state level, that will be a story in and of itself, and a very promising one at that. All right, if you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.